On a daily basis as an agronomist, I have different duties throughout the year. Starting this time of year, we're contracting and working with farmers to secure acres that they will grow seed on for us in soybeans, and then we'll do inspections throughout the season for purity on those soybeans to make sure it's the right variety that we're growing in those fields. And then in the fall, when it comes time, we will oversee harvest and do a final inspection to make sure there again that the purity is there in those soybean fields. Through the winter time, we're just making plans for the upcoming season, but those are what are my main duties as an agronomist, is working with the farmers to grow a seed crop. How I work with GMOs. In 1992, when I first started with Pioneer, I was in corn, like I said, but it was also the start of growing Roundup Ready resistant soybeans, which was the first GMO soybeans that were grown. And in 96, then as that expanded into Pioneer from Monsanto, I made the jump from corn to soybeans, and have grown those ever since, starting with the Roundup Ready resistant soybeans. There's what they call Plenish, which is a healthy oil or healthier oil soybean with less of the bad fat in it. Also have changed to dicamba resistant soybeans, and now the other one is that we're currently growing and starting from the Dow, since Dow and Pioneer have merged, is the Enlist soybeans, which is 2,4-D chemical resistant soybeans. We grow this crop then and contract with the farmers, as I said earlier, and then that supplies the sales force with the seed to sell to all of the farmers, not just the ones we contract with, but all the farmers through the U.S. and other countries with seed to grow the following year. My take on GMOs, there was a big debate when GMOs first came out. Other countries weren't so high on them like the U.S. was, and there's different ways that they were genetically modified. And if you think about it, the term GMO, or genetically modified organisms, sounds kind of like a laboratory term, and it can be a little scary. But when they first started, it was more of I would say a shotgun effect. They would take different genes that they wanted to insert into those and take what they called a gene gun and shoot it into the soybeans that they wanted to cross with, and wherever it landed in that DNA chain was where it stuck, and it just took a lot of trial and error to get different varieties of soybeans that they wanted to. Since then, it has gotten much more exact. They have been able to map the soybean and other crop DNA to know exactly what genes control what different functions, and they also know which genes can be taken out as far as bad genes, things like the water use sufficiency of crops, disease resistance and things like that, and can insert more exact the resistant genes that can withstand some of those different things as far as different diseases, different chemicals. The other thing that's happened too is, as we've gone on and different chemicals have been used, over time some weeds get resistance to those chemicals, so there's a constant battle with those weeds to use different chemicals, and as we use those different chemicals, if we can make the plant resistant to those chemicals, therefore we don't have to use as much chemical. We can use just the chemical we need rather than throwing a lot of different chemicals at them. So that side of GMOs has definitely helped, as well as the growing population throughout the world needs to be fed, and the usable land for growing crops keeps getting less and less because of urban cities expanding, and the crop ground is getting used more and more. We're losing it more and more for people to live on. So because of that, we need to increase the yield of crops on the remaining land that we have. And a very good way of doing that we've shown is through the use of GMO crops to increase that yield. So overall, there's a lot of benefits there. When it was first started with GMOs, Europe and China were two of the big countries that were against GMOs because they didn't understand a lot about them. But as we've tested them and proved that they're safe, they've also done their own testing. And so more testing that gets done by more independent people shows that it is still safe for human consumption and is being adapted more widely throughout the world, that they are safe. So that is my take on those positively. I don't see too many negatives that I can really think of. So obviously I work in the industry, but I still also work with farmers that say, are we doing the right thing? And I think we are. Like I say, we've got to increase our yield on the remaining ground that we have. And GMO crops, as we have learned more about them, can manage them better. And like I said, more independent study has been done on the safety of them. They've proven to be very safe from those tests.